Item number 9, I think it is. Still Dennis. You want a break, Dennis? Right, yes. Biosolids and Verma composting contract. Good afternoon, Pernell.
Good afternoon. How is everyone?
Very well.
Sorry, I just stopped you from having a break.
Yeah.
Hope you'll bear with me on this one. So the purpose of this agenda item this afternoon is to seek your approval to award a contract to Noki Limited, who's a vermicomposting operator in New Zealand. Back in July the 5th, just as a bit of background for you, we did run a workshop with councillors to, discuss a number of the options open to us as a district around our biosolids management, mainly because there are a number of options open to New Zealand, but we wanted to talk about some of the science behind vermicomposting because it's not so much a relatively new technology, but something that's been improved significantly over the recent years. At that particular workshop, we did discuss the fact that vermicomposting was our preferred option. And since that workshop, we've gone to tender. We ran an RFP process. And through that process, we identified our preferred supplier, and that's Noki Limited. Are there any questions on this item?
Any questions?
Just through the chair, I think Councillor Boddy and I were probably the only councillors that turned up to that, which was unfortunate. Was Noki Limited the actual company who did a presentation at that time?
Yes.
Just usually with others, when there's been a tender process, the other tenderer is named. It says that the tender evaluation and that Noki Limited is preferred, but it doesn't say who the other one was.
Yeah,
what the price tenders.
The other company was called Intercast, which was a joint venture essentially between a company called EcoCast and Intergroup.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I
apologise. It's
No,
just
that's
not
all right.
set out.
looking for that Councillor Park too. I did find it last night about.
Yeah, sorry, it's just not. Yeah, I'm
So
used.
we got two tenders in.
Yeah, 2 compliant
They're
tenders.
the only tender outfit and the only people that can do this job.
Well, it was an open tender, so I guess that is the case. There's a number of vermicomposting operators, but only on very small scale.
They've got some track record on this.
Noki Limited?
Yes.
Yes, indeed. Yeah,
With other councils.
absolutely. Hamilton City Council is their biggest customer at the minute, but they have a number of private sector, Fonterra, Landcorp, and they've just started to go into the Asian market as well.
Hamilton's the only other city council.
No, they also have. Yes, that's correct.
Councillor Williamson.
Thank you. Just with regard, I just want to just note with the land application method's obviously been very successful, isn't it?
Yes.
And obviously, I think it's nationally regarded as pretty much pioneer stuff. I know there's one down in Rolleston as well. A friend of mine is into that sort of field. So obviously, if you're coming up with the option 3, vermicomposting, I must feel it's obviously a lot better option.
I think what it does is it minimises the risk that you potentially have a product. I guess what vermicomposting does is it gives you the options to apply the output or the vermicast on a much broader variety. So you could do it on greens, golf courses, parks and reserves. Whereas with land application, because you have to apply for a resource consent to apply it, you're constrained as to where you can actually apply it. Also, you'll note in this particular example, we'll need to pay a fairly large upfront capital cost to continue with land application as we have done before.
Okay.
Need to clarify for councillors though, just run on from that question, we're not talking about stopping the irrigation of the farmers, just the biosolids. That's right, yeah. So it deals with that. Yeah.
Well, you think
Currently a waste stream going to landfill, which this will change.
Councillor
Just a technical question, and I apologise for not having attended that meeting. is there any history of biodiversity mishaps because of using this particular technology?
Because of using vermicomposting? Not that I'm aware of in the New Zealand environment. I think there's probably a lot more regulation here in this particular area, but I don't know, to be honest. Do you mean like the sorts of scenarios you might have with a settling pond? In terms of botulism and things?
Yes, that among other things.
Right.
Sorry, and just in the recommended resolution, the 1.4 wouldn't happen to be inclusive of GST, would it? It doesn't state either or.
No. Okay, it'd be excluding.
Yeah, it's always good if it was including, but never mind.
Through the chair, I had a couple of questions, please. Thank you. I note that the vermicomposting option requires an increase in the targeted rate moving forward, not for this financial, but for the next one. It's about $15 a household, is that right? What I'm struggling to understand, and maybe it's me with my numbers, it's actually a lower cost option, vermicomposting, than it is with landfill. So how come we've got an increase in targeted rate? I'm sure you've got an answer, Mr. Ward, but I did notice.
Well noticed. Excuse me. I guess is, gosh, currently we are disposing of the biosolids to landfill at the moment. Mm-hmm. Yep. And we have done that for this when the contract ended with the existing land disposal method. We have just done that on a kind of a cost neutral rate to deal with the issue prior to coming up with a long-term solution.
So you mean cost neutral, we weren't charging ourselves?
That's right, because it's an internal transaction effectively between left-hand and right-hand. So to get through this kind of transitional period, we've just kept that at effectively a cost neutral rate. But then going in the future, we need to fully cost that to the appropriate areas, which is why you're seeing an increase there.
Okay, thank you. Another couple of questions for me to you. I note that the operation will require some resource consents, which we won't be applying for, they will be. What sort of resource consents will they be needing to seek?
I think it's
apart from the obvious earth moving type.
Well, it's through to the Waikato Regional Council through Barry Campbell, and he's been quite au fait with dealing with Noki Limited before, and it's just to cover the operation, the vermicomposting operation on our land.
Sure. What about water take? Because don't they have to irrigate and keep these worms wet? Isn't that how it works? No?
There needs to be access to water, it's my understanding, but not to irrigate the worms. Okay. That's just for ablutions in the, in the set-up area.
And there is water up at the View Road farm for that.
Sure. I asked the question, I was just conscious that we've got the Healthy River Plan change, we've got the lake protection, we've got nitrogen cap, we've got all sorts of regulatory requirements that would want to make sure. And the other one was in terms of assessment of environmental effects, odour's the biggest issue, is that correct?
Of vermicomposting?
Yeah.
That's certainly something that's come up prior in their operations, where you're in an operation relatively close to a residential area. But it appears that through their management, through their technology and the innovative way that they mix, there's certain things you can do in the summer period when it could be more of an issue to reduce the odour.
Sure. So we have sensitive areas like residential areas around this proposal, no?
Yes. This is one.
This is the View Road farm.
View Road.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's surrounded by rural farmland.
Sure. Just wanting to check what's...
Motorsport park, reasonably close.
And I guess clarifying on that, prior to going to landfill, this biosolids used to go to a big pit there, so it's an established activity in that location.
I just wouldn't want to cause unintended consequences from odour. Odour is a very difficult one to manage and mitigate.
Understandable.
A couple of residential.
There's two houses, I think, within, a kilometre of the operation.
But we manage that on a daily basis for the existing operation.
Sure. in this company, worms like to be kept warm. I did a little bit of research, it's like 15 degrees to 27 degrees. Have we ever done worm farming like this in a colder climate like ours?
They're currently operating a very successful worm farm in Taupo. And
You reckon
Taupo,
it's colder there?
often Taupo is a lot colder than what we are
How long's that farm been operating? Because
for a number of years. I'm not sure how many years.
and it's of a similar scale and size to what we're proposing?
Much bigger, yeah, much bigger.
Okay.
That's where all of the Hamilton City biosolids go to.
I think what they've said in terms of what occurs over the winter period is that the worms actually go lower into the soil and they cease to operate a little bit, not so much activity occurs.
And just a final question from me at the moment. If we choose this way of just, recycling our biosolids, what impact will that have on our landfill in terms of meeting our obligations to reduce our waste there?
It would improve that situation markedly.
Markedly,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
I suppose just following on Councillor Jolland, what happens if it doesn't work? Money back guarantee? If it's not right, you'll put it right? Do we have any guarantees?
Well, we'll obviously, as part of the contract that we will sign once this endorsement goes through, there'll be a certain level of service level agreements, significant amounts of testing. They'll be responsible for reporting back on their resource consent, as we will on the operations at View Road. I think, whilst it's very easy to kill worms, these guys are the best in the business in terms of knowledge of that particular area. It's just about the people.
Both.
They've interviewed the worms.
I think they're dealing with the Hamilton City stuff, which is something in the order of 10,000 cubes a year. So we're a little bit smaller on that scale.
I just picking up on Councillor Jolland's a very good point that our ground temperatures are a lot lower than theirs. So
The Hamilton product actually gets taken to Kinleith, to that Tokoroa area, and Kinleith, the product from Kinleith gets taken down. So it's not actually managed in Hamilton.
In addition to that as well, we've actually also already run a trial operation with our biosolids to ensure that the recipe mix is works, and I can't remember the length of that trial, but the results were very good.
It's from Christmas through till July.
very good. Okay, Councillor Cousins.
Just through the chair, just on what you said, David, and also Councillor Joel, just about the environmental impact, in regards to smell, etc. Is there any risk to council? I mean, here I say it, Bernard's devil's advocate. And should we be consulting with the public on this, considering that there are some environmental impacts that we should be concerned about?
There's a consultation process as part of the application for resource consent that Noki Limited undertake.
Secondly, and finally, there's no way that these worms, if a pair of them got into the river, they can't breathe.
They're big worms, but they're not as big as carp.
So you're saying you would have preferred carp?
Just to take Councillor Cousins' comments, so would this be a limited notification in terms of resource consents by Noki Limited?
That would be over to Waikato Regional Council.
I just know, I'm just thinking of mushroom farms in the Hawke's Bay and all sorts of other things. I'm just conscious of...
Yeah, they would be able to Waikato Regional Council planning officers to undertake an assessment of the significance of effects, and they wouldn't be able to tell us that until they have an application in front of them.
I just think we probably have a duty of care just to make sure we're comfortable as well.
It was the mushrooms in Hawke's Bay, was it?
Smell it, yeah. All sorts of problems down there. Smelly mushroom farms.
Yeah, Mr Chairman, I do have a few questions on the item 9, and we are on 9 up, Mr Chairman.
No.
Number 9, there's comments made about
What page?
9.
9. Page.
It's the one after 8, no?
Yeah, on page, sorry.
It makes a comment here that a local contractor was putting it on their land after it'd gone through the process. Did anyone go out and find any other contractors that would have taken over from that particular person, so the system would run as it is now?
That contractor had a specific resource consent to apply it to land. Any essentially he's a farmer, and so any farmers would require a specific consent to apply biosolids to land, and there are issues relating to withholding that land if you're intending to use it for dairy stock.
Cows,
Yeah,
Was anyone approached?
no.
Thank you. Further down the page, we're talking about the impact on the rates of $15 per connection. That'd be right across the district. And I think you're talking here about a 2% increase.
Correct. The impact on the targeted wastewater rate is 2%, which equates to $15. That is correct, and that's district-wide.
Okay. In the wastewater renewals, that can't be used particularly if we're looking for option 2 in regards of the capital cost of that shed.
No, renewals is to renew existing assets. If we were to build the new shed on that, that's a new asset, so that would have to be loan funded.
Okay, I'm just going to find the exact. On 9(3), it states that under the advantages of option 2, which is the land application, puts land application dilutes the toxins and heavy metals traditionally associated with raw biosolids, and yet on 9(2), at the bottom of 9(2), it says a resource consent is required to be able to apply biosolids directly to land due to the elevated heavy metals contained in the biosolids, and yet that previous statement says something slightly different.
No, they're not in disagreement. You're required to have a resource consent to apply biosolids to land. In the process of applying the biosolids to land, you are reducing the impact of those heavy metals by mixing it with soil. So they're not mutually exclusive.
Okay. Well, then can we come back to what I just raised before Mr. Ward answered it, that 9(3), when it talks about the pit already exists, but requires a covering shed or covering/open shed at a cost of approximately $720. Then under the disadvantages, it talks about the maturation pit at View Road would require work to meet the requirements under the resource consent at an estimated cost of approximately $720. What are we talking about? A resource consent for $720 or a roof over a shed?
We're talking about a roof over a shed that would be required to meet consent conditions.
Has anyone done any plans, sketches, drafts of what that shed would entail?
Yes, that's the basis of that $720,000.
Is there a reason that we haven't got that in front of us? Because $720,000, you can just about build 2 houses. I'm just wondering why it's so expensive.
The roof,
I can do a very big roof, but I guarantee to do it for less.
the roof needs to be movable because you need to be able to get machinery like a loader or something of that nature in to remove the biosolids. So just the size and the structure results in that sort of cost.
We used to have silage pits like that with trailway runners and the tin roof. It's one of these things that I made a comment in our meeting this morning, is the fact that often I find gaps in agenda items which I find hard to actually follow, particularly when we're looking at the costs that we are.
So is that sketch or whatever, that plan available to council body?
Needs to be, yes.
Yep.
It will be available when? When would the sketch be available?
You've got it now? Have you got the sketch or?
I haven't got it immediately available on me.
No, but just at some stage if you could send to it.
That'll be after the agenda items been finished with.
Do you want it or not?
Well, it's going to be too late if the agenda item's passed, isn't it?
Don't worry about it. Yep. Okay.
One last question from me, thank you. if
Councillor
that's
Jollins?
okay. When Noki Limited did their assessment, obviously for the tender, did they go through any analysis on risks of failure? Because often these sorts of projects, they do look if there's a high or a medium risk of failure. Did they do any sort of qualitative assessment on that, or the risks of contamination of the vermicompost, depending on what you're mixing it with? And did they cover that off?
There's a number of risks identified in the agenda item, and they were developed in consultation with Noki Limited. They provided us with some, area of expertise. In terms of the risk of contamination,
Sorry, what risks were they in the paper?
9/5,
9/5. Yep, so there's environmental risks, process risks, business risks, etc. In terms of the contamination issue, I guess the process that they went by, where they took 2 samples from the wastewater treatment plant, and they took them away with them, and over a period of, I think it was December through to July, they did some testing on that product, because obviously the district's biosolids is unique, and there's also,
Such tactfully put,
All the
yes.
Indian restaurants.
it's even unique between a Monday and a Friday sample. So they took those samples away and they did some tests on them to compare against the other municipal biosolids that they manage, and we were provided with those results. And it was interesting because, and I think we had a discussion, Councillor Boddy and I, at the workshop just recently, around the fact that we believed that we had potentially higher arsenic than we, based on some of the understanding we had of our own biosolids, but yet compared to Hamilton, ours was quite a lot lower. But there were other heavy metals that came up. So through that process, I guess they gave us a list of several different mixing products that they could use to manage the dilution and also to ensure that the worms were the most happy.
Okay, all right, no, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Park.
Thank you. I just wanted to Mr. Fox. When we had a workshop on this, a presentation was done by Nike Limited. This then went out for tenders for a 2-week process, in which we got 2, and Nike have got it. Do you feel, from a risk management perspective, that this due diligence has been done on this procurement process? Because
2 weeks, is it?
yeah, we got a really great presentation, and I have trust in this company, but I just wonder if it's been as transparent as possible, because from a risk management perspective, it being pre-election period, I just feel a little uneasy, and I just wonder, from your risk management perspective, if you could help me.
I think the research that's gone into this particular agenda item before you is probably one of the more thorough ones, in my view. You've had a workshop that some of you attended. There's been a lot of, as Danielle's talked about, discussions with officers and the company. Are you talking about the tenure of the time frame for the procurement, particularly, Anna? Or?
Just the fact that it was that company that presented to us, and then there was a short tender process, and then it was
Just clarify that. Sorry to interrupt.
11th of July to the 27th of July. If that's normal, that's great. I just want to seek assurances before going forward to vote on the item.
Will be a 6-week tender period normally.
I'm actually for the project. I'm just wondering
Are
about
those timeframes
transparency.
correct? So it was only 2 weeks from the tender being requested?
16 days.
16 days, yeah. Yes, that is correct. I guess part of that was because of the process that we'd gone through up to that point. We had a fairly good understanding of the market. I guess we were surprised to see only 2 operators being able to operate at that level or be interested perhaps in responding to our tender. We also felt that given the timeframes that we were required to meet to ensure that we could bring this to you within the appropriate timeframe so that you had adequate time to decide, because we've been working on this, I guess, since the end of last year when the previous operator ceased to provide that we felt that was adequate time for operators in that market to respond to our needs, being a small municipal biosolids provider as we are.
Just if I can just follow on from that, Penel, did anybody else contact us and ask for information or suggest that the time frame was too short?
No.
They might not have seen it advertised though. So I sense a bit of nervousness around the table with some of the councillors. So I suppose you've got to test your resolution.
So just through the chair, I'm quite comfortable if I can be, if management is comfortable that this is being done appropriately.
Can I just ask Mr. Lewis, perhaps, and I notice you're very senior engineers in the background there, so you've got full support within your team, within your engineering team for this proposal?
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Jim, just on a positive, sorry, John, you go first.
Yeah, through the chair, I'm sorry I missed that workshop. Just backtracking a wee bit, obviously in New Zealand, 62% of all biosolids go to landfill compared to Australia. I know obviously you haven't got a crystal ball, but is there any estimates or any calculations to, or any other situation around the country, or where you can estimate it will be reduced to from that? Obviously Australia is 15%, that's different sort of environment, but is there any estimate or any guesstimate of?
Do you mean, do we have an estimate on what the total amount of municipal biosolids going to landfill would be in the future? Well, I guess the central government has a view because they are applying an ETS, the emissions trading scheme levy on everything that goes to landfill from January of next year, and that was brought forward from 2019. And I know there are a number of councils, such as Queenstown Lakes, who are looking at performing a vermicomposting operation just to get stuff out of landfill.
Yes.
So it'd be great to have a target like Europe, for example, but I think it will take time, predominantly for the reasons that I outlined in the presentation, which is it's cheap to stick it in landfill in New Zealand. It's super cheap. It's not €500 a tonne. We've got lots of free land. We're not overpopulated. Some councils are still putting it out to sea. So, until I guess the compliance and regulations cracks down, there's still that option.
Yeah, thank you.
Chair, what about mixing with lime? I didn't see that as being an option here. As apparently the most cheap and most efficient and environmentally friendly way of disposing of biosolids, I understand. In America, it's quite big business.
No idea.
Yeah, I actually haven't heard of that as an option in the New Zealand market.
It becomes a sweetener of the product in the ground. Just on a positive note then, from what I've heard today, by going this way, we open up our market for this product greater than what we've got now with the spraying of View Road. Would that be correct? Yeah. So therefore we can expect a greater return, because if it's put on pasture for hay and silage for dairy cows, it can be used, where what we've got now can't.
There's been some research, although there's not enough detailed analysis into the different crops, into the application of vermicompost on crops such as lucerne and ryegrass by comparison to simple land application of biosolids. And that research suggests that it is an increase in growth, but the exact percentage is unknown. I don't think we can bank on any more, but I think it's safe to say it's as good.
Heavier crops, but unknown at the moment. Thank you.
All right, I think we've probably canvassed. Of course, Miraka are the leaders in this. They've got their own vermicomposting, what is it? Vermicomposting, whatever it's called, operation there, as it were now, isn't it? So, okay, so do I sense a bit of happiness around the questions? Obviously, the contract will be, fairly watertight as per the questions that we've asked. The thing doesn't work.
We'll get Nigel right onto it.
Yes, yeah, good. All right, we've got a suggested resolution there, have we? Yep. Thank you, Pernell, and thank you, Dennis, for your item here today. So do I have a mover for this resolution? Moved by Councillor Park, seconded by, Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Christowski. Anyone want to speak against the resolution? No, I'll move it then. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.